The Silent Echo, the Lindbergh Kidnapping Case. It began as an ordinary evening. The kind of quiet night where the rhythm of life hummed with the regularity of a ticking clock. On March 1, 1932, Charles and Morrow Lindbergh settled into their routine at their stately Hopewell, New Jersey home. The house itself was a recent addition to their lives, a retreat from the public eye after years of relentless attention. But that night, as the shadows lengthened across the countryside, the Lindberghs' carefully crafted sense of security shattered irreparably. At around 10 p.m., the nursemaid, Betty Gow, entered the nursery to check on 20-month-old Charles Jr. The crib was empty. At first, she thought perhaps the boy had been taken by his parents. A search of the house quickly dispelled this hope. Charles Jr. was gone. Charles Lindbergh, the towering aviator who had crossed the Atlantic in a solo flight of daring and endurance, was now a father in anguish. With a flashlight in hand, he scoured the grounds of his home. Near the nursery window, he discovered two items that would later define the investigation: a broken homemade ladder and a white envelope containing a ransom note. The note was chilling in its simplicity. Scrawled in uneven handwriting, it demanded $50,000 for the boy's safe return and warned against involving the police. But by then, the wheels of law enforcement were already turning. Lindbergh, a man accustomed to taking decisive action, immediately contacted the authorities. A nation gripped by fear. By morning, the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby dominated the headlines. America was transfixed. For many, the crime felt deeply personal, an assault on the very idea of American success and promise. Charles Lindbergh was not merely a celebrity, he was a symbol of what the nation aspired to be. His achievements had lifted him to a pedestal. And now, his suffering seemed to cast a shadow over everyone. The investigation unfolded with a blend of urgency and frustration. The ladder, crudely constructed from 3 sections of wood, became an early focus. Forensic experts analyzed its design and traced its materials to a lumberyard. Though the trail offered more questions than answers, the ransom note, with its odd phrasing and distinctive handwriting, became another puzzle piece, hinting at an author who was both calculating and careless. Despite the meticulous efforts of law enforcement, progress was slow. Detectives interviewed local residents, laborers, and anyone who had crossed paths with the Lindbergh household. But no concrete leads emerged. The public, meanwhile, clamored for action. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some suggested it was the work of organized crime. Others pointed to disgruntled former employees. A few even whispered about the possibility of an inside job. Amid this chaos, a man named John Condon, a retired schoolteacher known locally as Jafsy, entered the picture. After publishing a public offer to mediate in a Bronx newspaper, Condon received a response from the kidnapper. Signed, John. Over the course of several weeks, Condon exchanged letters with this shadowy figure, each one deepening the intrigue. The kidnappers insisted on a cemetery meeting for the ransom exchange, a location that added an almost theatrical layer of menace to the crime. The ransom and the betrayal. On April 2, 1932, Condon, accompanied by an anxious Lindbergh, delivered the $50,000 ransom in cash, mostly in gold certificates. The intermediary met a man shrouded in darkness who claimed to be John and accepted the money. In return, the man provided a note claiming that Charles Jr. was safe aboard a boat called the Nellie. But the note was a cruel lie. Days later, on May 12, the decomposed body of the child was discovered in a wooded area less than 5 miles from the Lindbergh estate. The boy had died from a blow to the head, likely on the very night of the kidnapping. The nation mourned alongside the Lindberghs. But the grief quickly turned to outrage. Demands for justice intensified. The ransom money, paid in marked bills, became the linchpin of the investigation. Over time, the notes began to surface in various locations, including gas stations and stores. Each transaction brought investigators closer to the perpetrator. In 1934, 2 years after the crime, the trail led to Bruno Richard Hauptmann, a German immigrant with a criminal record. Hauptmann was arrested after attempting to use a marked bill. A search of his home revealed more of the ransom money, along with evidence linking him to the construction of the ladder. Hauptmann proclaimed his innocence. But the prosecution's case was compelling. The trial of the century. Hauptmann's trial in 1935 was a spectacle of epic proportions. Dubbed the trial of the century, it drew reporters, spectators, and legal experts from across the country. The courtroom was packed daily, with every word scrutinized by a public hungry for closure. The evidence against Hauptmann was damning but not without flaws. Forensic experts testified that the wood used in the ladder matched a plank taken from Hauptmann's attic. Handwriting analysts argued that the ransom notes bore similarities to Hauptmann's script. But there were inconsistencies. 2. No eyewitness could place Hauptmann at the scene of the crime. And his alibi, though weak, could not be definitively disproven. Hauptmann remained defiant throughout the proceedings, insisting he had been framed. His defense suggested that the ransom money had been left in his care by a former acquaintance, now deceased. But the jury was unmoved. On February 13, 1935, Hauptmann was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to death and executed by electric chair the following year. The shadows of doubt. Though Hauptmann's execution brought a sense of resolution to many, questions lingered. Some legal experts criticized the trial, arguing that media sensationalism and public pressure had compromised its fairness. Others pointed to the lack of concrete evidence connecting Hauptmann to the Lindbergh home or the crime itself. Over the decades, alternative theories emerged. Some speculated that Hauptmann had accomplices who were never identified. Others suggested the crime had been an inside job, possibly involving members of the Lindbergh household. Still others believed Hauptmann was innocent altogether, a scapegoat sacrificed to appease a grieving and outraged public. For the Lindbergh family, the tragedy left a permanent scar. Charles N. withdrew further from public life, eventually moving to Europe to escape the relentless scrutiny. Their son's death remained a haunting presence, a reminder that even the most charmed lives could be touched by unimaginable darkness. A crime that defined an era. The Lindbergh kidnapping remains one of the most infamous crimes in American history, not only for its tragedy but for what it revealed about the nation at the time. It was a story of contrasts, wealth and poverty, fame and obscurity, justice and vengeance. It forced America to confront its vulnerabilities, even as it sought to project strength. To this day, the case continues to captivate historians, true crime enthusiasts, and those who lived through its aftermath. It stands as a testament to the fragility of life, the complexity of justice, and the enduring power of unanswered questions.